The first time I came to St. John's, I remember it very well. I was 17, and it was in the fall of 1972. And a friend of mine invited me to go to church with him. So the two of us came Sunday morning. I hadn't been to church in years, I'd never been confirmed, and came in here and discovered that it was completely different from anything I'd ever seen before. I walked in and I thought, my goodness, this is like a Bing Crosby movie. There's statues and there's people getting up and down and they're genuflecting and they're crossing themselves. And I thought, this isn't at all what I remember from the Anglican Church. And I think I've always had a spiritual side to me that was waiting for something like that. And I just fell instantly in love and wanted to stay, but was too inhibited to come back on my own, actually. So my friend didn't like it at all and said, well, it was a good show for $1. And that was kind of the end of it. In 73, in the spring, Palm Sunday came around, and he said, you want to go back to that church again and see what they do on Palm Sunday. Now, of course, I was chomping at the bit to come back. I could hardly wait. And we came back, and there was a procession outside with palms and full choir. And at the end of it, I just said to myself that this is it. I'm going to come back every Sunday, whether my friend comes or not. And it's since the 70s been my home. Looking back on it, as a Christian, I can say that that was an action of the Holy Spirit. But I don't think we really know what the Holy Spirit is doing until we're looking back, But I certainly look back at that first visit to this church as a real gift of God, a grace. But the essence of this place has always been the worship. It's never been anything else. Everything else has happened because of the worship. The community is there because of the worship. And the other things that have happened have flowed out of that. So I think as long as we're able to maintain the worship of the church, that will sustain us in the other things that the church does. I think the emphasis here is very much on the Catholic tradition of personal piety, where the person is left to bring to the liturgy their own feelings and their own emotions. So this is a church you could go to if you just won $1 million the day before, or if you're the person you love most in the world just died in a car accident. You could still come here on a Sunday morning and bring what you were feeling to the liturgy. And I think that's something which, by and large, does not exist outside Catholic liturgies. think if you go to, I'm going to say the United Church, or to one of the more evangelical Anglican churches, there's an enforced happiness. Everyone has to feel good. Everyone has to feel good all the time. If you're not feeling good, you feel like you don't belong. And that's bad psychology, because people don't feel good all the time. But here in this space, there's an inflexible liturgy. We know at this point the priest is going to walk 3 steps that way, and then he's going to turn around. And it happens, and you can ignore it. It goes into the background, and you can put into it what you're feeling and what you want to bring to God on that day. Whereas if the priest is turning around and saying, all right, everybody, get up, stand up now and clap, you've lost whatever it was you were bringing that day. You're having to take part in this thing that the priest has divined for you to make you feel a certain way. And it's fun from time to time, but I don't think it sustains people through a lifetime. Certainly, our worship is not what would be called contemporary. And the problem with a contemporary liturgy, in my mind, is that it has to change every week, because contemporary changes every week. Again, I think in the end, that can be more distracting than helpful. Our liturgy isn't really, the language really isn't that old. It's what we would call early modern English or Shakespearean English. That is accessible, it's understandable, the language is not foreign, and yet it's distant enough that you can, again, read into it what you like. If you're using very, very contemporary words and language, I think sometimes it can jar. The language of the Elizabethan times that we use in our liturgy here really was the flowering of the English language. There's something about the fact that our prayers are the same, that even if the language is a bit loftier, a little bit less accessible, you can learn it, you can incorporate it, and you can imbue it with your own meaning. So I've been in an arrangement where I'm actually living in what would be the rectory right now. So for me, coming in here means going downstairs. And it's easier for me because I'm I'm the volunteer sacristan here. So it helps me to be able to come down, to set up, to prepare for the masses, to get the vestments ready, put out the chalices, the things that I have to do every day anyways. This place, after a while, starts to invade you, and you become part of it, and it becomes part of you in very strange ways. When people come in, even if they're renting, they recognize that this is a sacred space, and it maintains that. Well, first of all, the architecture, but the years and years of having been prayed in, it wears off, I come in here every day, 2 or 3 times a day, setting up for masses or doing something else here. And every single time I come in, I have this feeling that I'm entering the house of God. And that hasn't changed even though we had wrestling matches here. This church has always attracted strange people, and I think that says something. I think it says something. Even if we go back to the days of Father Wood, if you look at the history of the church, it was never the eldest son and heir who came here. It was always the third son or the strange cousin or someone like that who would end up at our parish instead of at St. George's or the cathedral or one of the more establishment churches. It was always people that were in some ways a little bit different that came here. And I think it's because they were called here. I think they were called here because they were different. I think people that are a little bit different are looking more, and are maybe in some ways open to, this is a terrible sweeping generalization, I hate to say it, but maybe a little bit more open sometimes to the workings of the Holy Spirit. It may be, someone who's a little bit not used to fitting in would feel called a little bit more easily, would feel more at home in a place where there aren't demands put upon them to stand up and clap or to dance in a circle or whatever, just to be able to be themselves in their own space and to be a little bit different. I think it's always been that way. Everyone has his idiosyncrasies, let's say, and I think that makes for a community which is exciting and different. The fact that, this is my community means that my circle of friends is not at all necessarily just like myself, There's friends from all different walks of life with different experiences, different ways of viewing the world that I would never, ever have met even if I weren't attending this church. So again, for me, that's another grace, just to be able to be with this group of, one parishioner refers to it as a group of wandering eccentrics. It challenges us to be part of a larger slice of society, which I think is a tremendous experience. I also miss the people who've died. I remember their stories. I remember why they were here. I remember some of the things they said that inspired me at the time. I remember some of the challenges they went through. And each one of those names comes back as a memory. You're reliving the presence of them again. And in this place, I feel they still are here. I still feel their presence. So when Father's reading the list and comes up with such and such a name, I really have that sense of the communion of saints, that they're still here, and we're with them and they're with us. They're moved on, we don't see them, but they're still very much here. And I think that is one of the blessings of being in a church like this over a period of time. People that I knew in the 70s, many of them have moved, many have died, and many new people have come. So it's like a river that has a flow to it. There's coming, people going, but it's a constant community of faith that has never ceased to inspire me, to uphold me, and to give me a real reason to live, to give me meaning to my life.